The UFC has seen some of the toughest fighters in history. From big knockouts to great wins, we're counting down the top 20 UFC fighters of all time. Who will be number one? Let's find out. At number 20 in our list, we have Dominick Cruz, one of the most highly regarded mixed martial artists at the bantamweight level. Dominick Cruz was the UFC's first champion in that division. Cruz is known for his strong wrestling and quick striking ability, but most of all for the unorthodox angles at which he attacks his opponents. At number 19 in our list, we have BJ Penn. The only fighter to win both the lightweight and welterweight titles, BJ Penn's record might seem mediocre, but that's only because of a fall-off during the latter half of his career. Considered one of the greatest boxers in UFC history by legendary trainer Freddie Roach, Penn knocked out Matt Hughes and put up some tough performances in losing efforts against Georges St-Pierre. At number 18 in our list, we have Henry Cejudo. While he finished 8 of his 16 wins via TKO, Henry Cejudo is also known for his prowess in freestyle wrestling, a discipline in which he won an Olympic gold medal, becoming the only athlete ever to win both a UFC belt and Olympic gold. Cejudo finished his career on a 6-fight winning streak during which he claimed 2 UFC belts and defended each of them once. At number 17 in our list, we have Matt Hughes. During his reign as the UFC welterweight champ, Matt Hughes was considered by many to be the one pound-for-pound MMA fighter in the world. Hughes, whose MMA style stems from a wrestling background, has 2 separate 6-fight winning streaks in the UFC to his name. At number 16 in our list, we have Conor McGregor. Is one of the greatest UFC fighters we've seen, but his prowess inside the ring has somewhat been overshadowed by his polarizing figure outside of the Octagon. Nonetheless, the power he possessed for his weight class was immense, and his 13-second knockout of Jose Aldo to claim the featherweight title was a sight to behold. At number 15 in our list, we have Valentina Shevchenko, one of the most dominant mixed martial artists we've ever seen. Valentina Shevchenko has not lost to anyone not named Amanda Nunes since 2010. She has barely been challenged during her reign at the top of the women's flyweight division and has beaten 4 former UFC champions. At number 14 in our list, we have Max Holloway, one of the best boxing technicians the Octagon has ever seen. Max Holloway has mastered the sweet science like few others in the sport of MMA. He knocked Jose Aldo out twice during his reign atop the UFC featherweight division, and also bested Frankie Edgar. At number 13 in our list, we have Kamaru Usman, remains the greatest welterweight we've ever seen this side of Georges St-Pierre. He was criticized early in his career for a boring brand of fighting that involved extended clinches and playing for points, but recent knockouts of Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, and Gilbert Burns show that he can bring the fireworks when it's super necessary. At number 12 in our list, we have Randy Couture. One could say that Randy Couture was the first UFC superstar with a mid-career streak of 14 out of 15 fights with a belt on the line. He is the only fighter to reclaim a belt he had previously lost 3 separate times, and his late career success into his 40s remains unparalleled. At number 11 in our list, we have Daniel Cormier. As just the second simultaneous 2-division champ in UFC history, Daniel Cormier is in very elite company. He has also created an impressive life for himself just outside the Octagon, as one of the premier UFC commentators today. At number 10 in our list, we have Chuck Liddell, credited for popularizing UFC and bringing into the mainstream along with his rival Randy Couture. Chuck Liddell was the author of some of the most brutal knockouts the Octagon has seen, knocking his opponents out cold on 9 different occasions. At number 9 in our list, we have Royce Gracie, the very first UFC superstar and a true MMA pioneer. Royce Gracie won 3 of the first 4 UFC events when there were no weight classes and nearly no rules. At UFC 1, he fought thrice in one night. At UFC 2, he fought a record 4 times in one night. And at UFC 4, he fought 3 more times in one night. At number 8 in our list, we have Jose Aldo was the first UFC featherweight champion, and after claiming the title, he didn't relinquish it again for over 5 years, a span during which he took down the Korean Zombie, Frankie Edgar, and Chad Mendes twice. Aldo is arguably the greatest mixed martial artist to fight in his weight class, relying on excellent Muay Thai striking and, frustratingly for his opponents, solid defensive wrestling. At number 7 in our list, we have Stipe Miocic, considered by many in the sport and even a few of his former opponents as the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. Stipe Miocic is one of the few fighters on our list of the best UFC fighters that's still competing. Miocic has relied on his precise striking and heavy hands to dominate the top division in the UFC, with wins over heavyweight champs Daniel Cormier, Francis Ngannou, and Junior Dos Santos on his resume. At number 6 in our list, we have Amanda Nunes. We could fill up a whole page with the records and achievements Amanda Nunes has racked up over her illustrious MMA career. The Brazilian is without a doubt the greatest female mixed martial artist the sport has ever seen, and has proven it time and time again against the best competition the sport has to offer. She has beaten a whopping 7 current or former UFC champions during her run, including Ronda Rousey and Valentina Shevchenko twice. At number 5 in our list, we have Demetrious Johnson, the greatest flyweight to ever lace him up. Demetrious Johnson was the inaugural champ of the UFC's flyweight division. Thanks to his elite wrestling, lightning speed, and overall elusiveness, Mighty Mouse reigned supreme at 125 pounds for a ridiculous 2,142 days, which included his UFC record 11 straight successful title defenses. At number 4 in our list, we have Khabib Nurmagomedov. He is the only fighter on this list to have never suffered a defeat. He used a deadly and relentless combination of sambo, wrestling, and judo to aggressively overwhelm his opponents, a technique many have referred to as mauling. He finished his MMA career with dominant finishes of Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, and Justin Gaethje that left many believing he could be pound for pound the greatest to ever enter the UFC Octagon. At number 3 in our list, we have Georges St-Pierre, one of the few fighters on our list who was still at his best when he called it quits. Georges St-Pierre went undefeated from 2007 to 2017 before retiring for good. St-Pierre was a decision expert, winning 12 of his 26 bouts by the scorecards. He is the greatest welterweight fighter in history, but he will be remembered most for coming out of a 4-year retirement to beat and finish Michael Bisping in shocking comeback fashion for the middleweight belt in 2017. At number 2 in our list, we have Anderson Silva, an expert in several disciplines including Muay Thai and Taekwondo. Silva was mainly a stand-up fighter and is widely regarded as the greatest striker in UFC history. Nonetheless, he was still able to secure several notable submission victories over Olympic wrestlers Dan Henderson and Chael Sonnen. The Brazilian is a southpaw but could fight orthodox with great success as well. Our number 1 best UFC fighter of all time, Jon Jones, could easily have an unblemished record if it wasn't for a questionable DQ, which even his opponent disputed. Jones has run through the light heavyweight division, beating opponents by way of everything from guillotine choke to a unanimous decision to TKO via elbows and punches to key lock to a rear naked choke. His 1,463 significant strikes are a UFC light heavyweight record, as is his 95% takedown defense percentage.